What if I told you that the $28 jug of laundry detergent sitting on your shelf right now is one of the biggest financial scams ever pulled on the American household, and that a quiet, tight-knit community in rural Ohio figured out how to completely ignore it over 100 years ago and never looked back? Stay with me, because by the time this is over, you are going to walk into your laundry room and look at everything differently. Let's start with a moment. Picture this. You're standing in the laundry aisle of your local grocery store. The fluorescent lights are humming above you. You reach for a jug of Tide or Gain, you flip it over to check the price, and your stomach does that little drop. $28, maybe $32. And you already know, it's going to be gone in 6 weeks, maybe 8 if you're careful. You put it in the cart anyway because what choice do you have? You can't exactly stop washing clothes. But what if that moment, that quiet resignation you feel every single time, was never supposed to happen to you? Here is what nobody in that aisle is going to tell you. The American detergent industry is built almost entirely on one thing: your forgetting. Not your ignorance, your forgetting. Because your great-grandmother knew exactly how to make laundry soap. Her mother knew. Her mother's mother knew. And for generations, it cost them almost nothing. Then somewhere between World War II and the invention of color television, that knowledge was quietly, deliberately buried. And the people who buried it have been collecting somewhere around $240 from the average American household every single year ever since. The Amish never forgot. I want to tell you about the first time I visited a farmhouse outside Millersburg, Ohio. It was a Tuesday morning in October, the kind of cold that makes the air smell like iron and dry leaves. I pulled up a gravel drive, and before I even got out of the car, I saw it. A long clothesline strung between 2 wooden posts, covered in sheets and work shirts and children's dresses. Stones, and they were white, not off-white. Not the grayish cream that most of us accept as clean. Brilliant, almost painful white. The kind of white you see on hotel sheets and commercials, but never in your actual hotel room. The woman who washed those clothes had never spent a single dollar on commercial laundry detergent. Not $1 in her entire adult life. When I asked her how, she smiled the way people smile when you ask them something that seems obvious to them. She said, "My mother taught me, and her mother taught her, and we just never stopped." That sentence hit me somewhere I wasn't expecting. Because what she was describing wasn't a hack or a trick or a life hack she found on Pinterest. She was describing an unbroken chain of knowledge, practical, powerful, working knowledge, that the rest of America severed and then paid to replace with something worse. Let me tell you what is actually inside that jug you have been buying. The single biggest ingredient in commercial liquid laundry detergent is water. Plain tap water. Most formulations are between 70 and 90% water, dyed blue, scented with synthetic fragrance, compounds, and packaged in a plastic container that costs more to manufacture than the actual cleaning agents inside. The cleaning agents themselves come down to 2 core things: sodium carbonate, which you know as washing soda, and sodium tetraborate, which you know as borax. Those 2 minerals do nearly all of the actual heavy lifting in your laundry. And you can buy both of them right now at virtually any hardware store or grocery store in the United States for less than $12 total. Here's the math, and I want you to actually feel it. A 4-pound box of Arm & Hammer superwashing soda costs about $5. A 4-pound box of 20 Mule Team Borax costs about $6. Add a bar of pure soap, Fels Naphtha, Zote, or Castile, for about $2 to $3. You're at $13 to $14. From those 3 ingredients, you can produce enough laundry cleaner for your entire household for a full year. Some families stretch it to 18 months. Smaller households have pushed 2 years. The average American family spends around $240 per year on laundry detergent. Families with kids in sports, pets, or physically demanding jobs, you are easily at $350 or more. The difference between what you are spending and what this costs is not pocket change. That difference is a month of groceries. That is a heating oil bill. That is the money you keep telling yourself you will save someday when things slow down a little, except they never do, and the detergent companies are counting on exactly that. Now here is the part that made me genuinely angry when I first understood it. Commercial detergent was not invented because soap stopped working. I need you to understand that. Soap worked. It always worked. The reason synthetic detergent was developed goes back to the First and Second World Wars. The animal fats needed to produce traditional soap were being rationed and shipped overseas to support the war effort. American chemical companies, under pressure, developed synthetic detergent formulas as a wartime substitute, a necessity born out of shortage, not superiority. The war ended. The soap shortage ended. But the chemical companies had built enormous manufacturing infrastructure, and they needed to keep it running. So they did what any industry does when it has excess capacity and a product to move. They ran advertising. Massive, relentless nationwide advertising campaigns telling the American public that the soap their mothers and grandmothers had used for generations was outdated, dirty, and less effective than these new modern formulas. None of that was true. The Amish, who have never been a particularly receptive audience for advertising campaigns, simply continued doing what they had always done. And here we are 80 years later watching their sheets dry in the sun and wondering why ours look gray by comparison. Here at Secret Vault, we talk about exactly this kind of buried knowledge, practical wisdom that got swapped out for something more profitable to someone else. This is one of the clearest examples I've ever found. So let's talk about how you actually make this. Write this down if you need to. Take 1 full bar of pure soap. Fels naphtha is probably the easiest to find. Zote works beautifully, and Castile soap if you want the gentlest option. Grate the entire bar using a standard box grater, the kind you use for cheese. Put the grated soap into a large pot with 4 cups of water and set the burner to low. Not medium low, low. You want the water hot enough to steam, what one Amish woman I watched described as a whisper, just under the bubble. Stir it constantly, slowly, and let the soap dissolve into a smooth, milky liquid. This takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Do not rush it, and do not let it boil hard. If you smell something sharp, almost like burnt caramel, pull it off the heat immediately. Scorched soap loses cleaning power and will tint your finished detergent a faint brown that eventually shows up on white fabric. Once the soap is fully dissolved, pour that liquid into a clean 5-gallon bucket. Add 1 full cup of washing soda and 1 full cup of borax. Stir with a long wooden spoon. Not metal, because washing soda and borax are mildly reactive with certain metals, and over time, you will get gray discoloration you do not want in your laundry. Wood is inert. Stir until both powders are completely dissolved, then fill the rest of the bucket with hot tap water while continuing to stir. Let it sit overnight. In the morning, what you will find is that the mixture has thickened into a gel. Some batches turn into something resembling thick custard. Others are looser, more like pudding. Both are completely fine. That is just the soap binding with the water and cooling. Use half a cup per load of laundry in a standard machine. If you have a high-efficiency washer, use 1/4 cup. 1 5-gallon bucket of this detergent will wash somewhere between 250 and 300 loads of laundry. For most families, that is a full year of clean clothes. Now I know what objection is forming in your head because I have read it a few hundred times online. The argument goes like this. Homemade laundry soap is not real detergent. Real detergent has synthetic surfactants. Soap leaves residue. Soap clogs machines. Soap does not work in hard water. I heard all of it. I almost talked myself out of trying this recipe because of it. But here is what those articles never mention. Almost every major online resource warning you away from homemade laundry soap traces back, directly or indirectly, to industry-funded sources. The companies profiting from your dependence are the ones funding the studies that warn you against independence. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a business model. It is the most rational business model in the world, actually. If you can make your customers afraid of the alternative, you never have to compete with it. The recipe I just gave you produces almost no suds, which makes it completely appropriate for high-efficiency machines. Here is what most people do not understand about suds. Visible foam has nothing to do with cleaning power. Cleaning happens at the molecular level, when surfactant molecules bond with grease and dirt and physically lift them off fabric fibers. The bubbles are a visual trick, engineered into commercial detergent, because focus groups in the 1950s associated foam with effectiveness. You were literally trained to want something that means nothing. If your tap water is high in calcium and magnesium, which it is in a significant portion of the United States, those minerals bond with the cleaning agents in your detergent and essentially neutralize them. You end up using more soap to get the same result and still pulling dingy fabric out of the machine. Washing soda pulls those hard water minerals out of the equation before they can interfere. It is not a workaround. It is a solution. And here is something worth knowing. If you cannot find washing soda at your local store, you can convert baking soda into washing soda yourself. Spread a layer of standard baking soda on a baking sheet, about 1/2 inch thick, and bake it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. The heat drives off water and carbon dioxide molecules, converting sodium bicarbonate into sodium carbonate. In 1953, the University of Wisconsin Extension Service tracked laundry costs across 40 rural farm families and 40 suburban families in Milwaukee. The rural families, nearly all of whom made their own soap from the same recipe I just described, spent an average of $1.80 per year on laundry supplies. The suburban families buying commercial detergent spent an average of $31 per year, adjusted for inflation. While that $31 is equivalent to roughly $370 today. The homemade figure adjusts to about $21. The gap was enormous in 1953. It is more enormous now because while the homemade method has barely changed in cost, commercial detergent has multiplied several times over in price and about a quarter in actual cleaning concentration. If you have been using commercial detergent for years, there is something you should do this weekend even before you make your first batch. Walk to your washing machine and run a finger along the rubber gasket around the door if you have a front loader, or along the underside of the agitator in a top loader. What you will almost certainly find is a greasy, slimy buildup. That is not from your clothes. That is synthetic chemicals and fabric softener residue from your commercial detergent, compounds that never fully rinse out, that coat the inside of your machine, your hoses, and eventually the fibers of your clothes. That buildup is also the reason your washing machine has developed that faint, musty smell that never fully goes away no matter how many cleaning tablets you run through it. When you switch to the homemade recipe, that residue gradually breaks down and rinses away. Within 3 to 4 weeks, most people report the smell is gone entirely and the machine runs noticeably quieter. While you are at it, start using plain white vinegar in place of fabric softener. Half a cup in the fabric softener dispenser every load. White vinegar costs about $3 a gallon. Commercial fabric softener costs around $12 for a smaller bottle. The vinegar dissolves the soap residue left from years of chemical buildup, neutralizes odors, and leaves your fabric softer than commercial softener does, because it strips away the waxy coating that fabric softener deposits, which is the same coating that has been reducing your towel's absorbency for years and locking odors into your workout clothes even after washing. There's also something you can start doing right now with absolutely no additional cost. Stop throwing away soap slivers. Every time a bar of hand soap in your bathroom gets too small to comfortably use, drop it into a glass jar near your laundry machine. Once you have accumulated roughly half a bar's worth of scraps, you can use those in place of grating a fresh bar for your next batch. Over the course of a year, those scraps alone, material you were literally throwing in the trash, can produce 2 or 3 full detergent batches at zero additional cost. You are washing your clothes for free. And if your clothes have started to look dingy from years of mineral buildup in the fibers, here is what laundry professionals call a strip wash. For your next 5 loads, add half a cup of borax directly into the wash drum alongside your regular detergent. Now I want to tell you about the secret ingredient, because this is the part that separates the good results from the results I saw hanging on that Ohio clothesline on a cold October morning. The ingredient almost nobody outside Amish communities knows to include. I found it in a handwritten household ledger from the 1920s, kept by a woman named Sarah Miller from Lancaster County in Pennsylvania. The ledger had been donated to a regional historical archive by her great-granddaughter in 1987, and I came across a transcription of it while doing research for this. In the laundry section, helps lock the dye molecules into fabric fibers, which means your colored clothes resist fading significantly longer. This is the same principle commercial textile manufacturers have used in dye fixation for over 2 centuries. Second, salt softens water further by introducing negatively charged chloride ions that bond with the positively charged hard water minerals, calcium and magnesium, that the washing because nobody thought to look in old farm ledgers. 2 tablespoons of coarse sea salt, about $1 worth of material. It costs you essentially nothing and changes the result completely. Sarah Miller's ledger had one other note in the laundry section. She wrote, "Hang the linens in the sun, even in cold weather, for the sun whitens what the soap cannot. Direct sunlight contains ultraviolet radiation that breaks down organic stain molecules at a structural level. Applied to wet fabric on a clothesline, it is the most powerful free bleaching agent that exists on Earth." If you do not have outdoor space for clothesline, you can get a reduced version of this effect by hanging white shirts, sheets, or kitchen towels in front of a south-facing window for 2 or 3 hours after washing. The UV exposure through glass is attenuated but not eliminated. Over several weeks, you will see your whites visibly brighten. Yellowed collars will begin clearing. Stains you had written off as permanent will start fading. Which homes are Amish, and which are not just by looking at the tank. Amish tanks are cleaner, the bacterial colonies are healthier, and the pump intervals are nearly double. He pumps Amish tanks every 7 to 9 years, and neighboring English households every 3 to 4. Same family sizes, same water usage. The only variable is what is going down the drain. He showed me his appointment ledger without my asking. That is not anecdote. That is a record of 3 decades of service calls. Here's what they have actually taken from you, and I want you to sit with this for a moment. Not a product, a way of thinking, a kind of daily competence that your grandparents had as a matter of course. The understanding that your household could produce many of its own essentials simply, cheaply, and well. That competence was worth money to the people who wanted to replace it with purchased alternatives. So they ran advertising designed to make you associate homemade with inferior and store-bought with modern. They put their products at eye level and paid for the placement. The ratios, the small details like the salt and the wooden spoon and the whisper of heat, all of it passed forward intact, one kitchen at a time, while the rest of America was watching laundry commercials. This is the part that Secret Vault exists for. Not to sell you anything, not to replace one dependency with another, but to hand you back what was yours. Knowledge that works, knowledge that costs almost nothing, knowledge that your great-grandmother would have considered completely ordinary. So here's everything you need. 1 bar of Fels Naphtha, Zote, or Pure Castile soap, $2 to $3. 1 4-pound box of Arm & Hammer superwashing soda, $5. 1 4-pound box of 20 Mule Team Borax, $6. 2 tablespoons of coarse sea salt, about $1. Total outlay, $15. Total time, 20 minutes for your first batch. Total duration for an average family, 1 full year, probably more. And the result is laundry that is genuinely cleaner, brighter, softer, and better for your machine and your septic system than anything in that aisle at your grocery store. Go to the hardware store this weekend, buy the 3 ingredients, make the first batch. Use it for a month and then look at your clothes, look at your machine, and look at what you are no longer spending. And then think, really think, about how many other things in your daily life you have been overpaying for because the knowledge of an alternative was deliberately buried before it ever reached you